Hello and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer, the board game community's answer to Otis from The Andy Griffith Show. Except I don't really drink or spend my evenings in jail. Come to think of it, it's not a very apt comparison, is it? I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at the DC Comics deck building game Confrontations from Cryptozoic Entertainment. The DC Comics deck-building game, Confrontations, from Cryptozoic Entertainment, is a four-player game that is designed to, of course, address some of the thematic issues of the original DC Comics deck-building game, but provide a more confrontational approach to the game. It's a team game, something we haven't seen yet in DC Comics deck-building games. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and describe to you exactly how the DC Comic deck-building game works. If you want an overview of the original base game, I recommend you go back and check out Season 1, Episode 5 of The Discriminating Gamer, where Zach, Sean, and I go ahead and take a look at that game. What we're going to go ahead and talk about today is kind of specifically what this game brings to the table. The DC Comics deck-building game Confrontations had its genesis in a game that came out a few years ago, the DC Comics deck-building game Rivals, Batman vs. the Joker. Now, that was a game that introduced this confrontation system, essentially where you had three hero cards, you kind of play through them, you're attacking the other hero card. It's a two-player game, and when you get through one card, you then, of course, try to hit the next. You get more powerful, you get better powers as the game went on. But it had a very specific system built into it that, again, made it more of a direct confrontation instead of the thematic problem of the original game, which, of course, you had the heroes battling each other. Didn't make a lot of sense. So what they're doing here with Confrontations is essentially they are having two teams of two. Two of you will play heroes, two of you will play villains. Now, the heroes that you can play are Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, or Zatanna. For the villains, you can play Lex Luthor, Cersei, who I'm not really familiar with, Felix Faust, and, of course, Ocean Master. So these are your superheroes and supervillains that you can play with. Now, again, it's a 2v2 game, so you're not going to play with all of them. Each hero and villain gains his three character cards that have a cost of 9, 12, and 15, and they become, again, increasingly more powerful. You also will not play this game just clockwise. You'll have these little tokens that you'll put out in front of you that will say whether you are a hero or villain, blue or red, and what turn order you're going to go in, because it's going to go hero, villain, hero, villain. Now, the game's going to play very similar to the regular DC Comics deck building game. You're going to have your punch cards, your vulnerability cards, your weakness cards that function exactly the same. You're going to take your starter cards. You're going to be buying from the lineup, and they come out of the main deck, more powerful cards that are going to give you more and more abilities. But you do have some important different cards that are going to pop up, and then, of course, you have this confrontation system. Now, what's going to happen is when you think you have enough power, or potentially enough power, to take on one of your villain's character cards, you announce a confrontation. Now, if you announce a confrontation, you cannot buy cards from the lineup. That turn, no matter what, you cannot buy it. I think there's one card that maybe lets you do it, but generally speaking, you cannot buy cards from the lineup. You are just engaged in this confrontation.
Confrontation!
Now, once you announce a confrontation, you're going to figure out who you're going to battle. Now, if both of your enemies have the same card, they're both on a 9, both on a 12, you can choose who you want to go for. But if one of them is less, one of them's a 12 and one of them's a 9, you've got to attack the 9. You've always got to go for whichever one is the lower number. So that way you can't just gang up on one and knock him out. So what you do is, of course, you play all your power cards. You play any cards that give you any special abilities. Once you've got all your power, you announce to your target, this is how much power I'm bringing. It needs to equal or exceed the number of the character card. And the player who's initiating the confrontation, they're going to go ahead, they're going to play all of their cards, they're going to amass their power, they're going to play special abilities, and on some cards you'll have confrontation. The confrontation keyword essentially says, during a confrontation you also get this ability. So your cards can become more powerful only during confrontations. You go ahead, you play those, you figure out how much power you have, and then you announce to your opponent, the person you're confronting, this is the power I'm bringing to you. Now, again, you have to equal or exceed the number on their character card. But your opponent also has some cards up their sleeve. Not really. I don't endorse cheating. But they may have block cards. Now, a block card is very important because the block keyword essentially says if you're in a confrontation and you are being attacked, you can play these cards or discard these cards to essentially increase your character's point value for that turn. So you temporarily get a boost in how high you're doing. So one side's trying to bring you down with all of his abilities, and then you may have some of these abilities with your block in order to defend yourself, depending on what your hand is at that time. So if you can get a higher number than just him equaling your number, then of course, your base number, then of course you win the confrontation, and the person who initiated the confrontation is out of luck. They can't spend that power on anything else. They're done. But if the person that initiates the confrontation succeeds and equals or exceeds that number even with blocks, they gain that character card and the victory points printed on it.
No. Yes! Yes!
And the heroes take it.
Alright, I'm staying on this team.
There's another important keyword in this game, and that is assist. Now, anytime during a player's turn, a teammate can say to the player who has the active turn, I want to assist you, if they have a card with the keyword assist. Essentially, they play that card, and it's as though the person whose turn it is gets all the abilities of that card. They can, oh, okay, I've got that card, and then they go ahead and they play it as though it were their card. But then that card immediately, the assist card, goes into the player who played it, into his discard pile. Not in the active player, but the player who offered the assist goes back into his pile. Now, this is important for several reasons. During a confrontation, this can be very important. You're constantly asking your partner, do you have any cards that can help me out? Because I might be able to beat him here. So that's an important aspect of the game. Also, too, instead of a kick card, which is kind of the pool of cards you can play, they also have I think it's the Enhanced Abilities card, which essentially allows you to play that as an assist for 1 point. Now, if you play it yourself, you get the full 2 power points for it, but if you play as an assist, you only are giving 1 power point. Now, the team wins the game in one of two ways. First of all, if one team completely destroys all 3 character cards of one of the characters, the game is immediately over. Just one character gets knocked out, their team loses. The team that knocked them out wins the game immediately. Second way the game ends is at the end of the game, that is to say, if the deck runs out, the main deck runs out, and you can no longer refill the lineup with cards, then you all go through your decks, you add up the total number of points you have, both from the cards you bought and from the confrontation cards, the character cards that you've defeated, you subtract any for weakness cards that you've got, and then the 2 teammates will add their totals together. And then both sides will compare. Whoever has the highest total wins. Their team wins the DC Comics deck building game Confrontations. Now, I should also tell you, this is a 4-player game. There are variants for 2 and 3 players as well. But in a nutshell, that is how you play DC Comics deck building game Confrontations. So, first of all, you know I'm a big fan of the DC Comics deck building game. This is just a really fun game. I really enjoy the DC Comics deck building game quite a bit. This is a game where, you know, you're looking at those combinations and you're trying to build those combinations, and it's so much fun to get there and to discover these new things. Oh, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. It really is very fun and well done. The artwork here as well is phenomenal, as in all DC Comics deck building games. The artwork in Confrontation is phenomenal. Right from the comic books, it's beautiful. This is a beautiful game to play, card game to play, in my opinion. I love looking at this game. The confrontation system, when I played the Batman vs. the Joker Rivals game, I loved it. I loved the confrontation system. My problem with that game was it was just 2-player, and it was like, well, for not much more money, you can buy the base game, and you can play with more players if you want. So I was kind of reluctant to give a full-on endorsement of that game for that reason. I still really enjoyed it. I really enjoy how they've have the confrontation system here with this team game. I really like this. I like the assists. Like I say, you're constantly asking your partner, what have you got that can assist me? I think I can do something. Can you help me? I'll need all the help I can get if I'm going to take him down. So you're constantly asking your partner, if they've got those cards. So assist is really interesting. It's also interesting, too, that if you're the person assisting, once you assist with that card, it goes in your discard pile. You've got less cards on your turn. So it's a sacrifice. It's a tough choice. Do I assist them? But then I don't get as much here. But I'm pulling for the team, right? So I really like that aspect of the game as well. I had a lot of fun with this game. My friends had a lot of fun with this game. It's a good, solid deck-building game. And this particular format, this Confrontations format, is just phenomenal. It's just a lot of fun. Having said that, I do have a couple of criticisms of this game. First of all, whenever I would play the DC Comics deck building game, I always felt, the original base game, I always felt 2 to 3 players was probably optimum. Now, sometimes you've got a bigger group and you got to play with more, and I understand that. But for me, 2 to 3 players is optimum, because when you get to 4 or 5, it just seemed like it would take a while for your turn to come around. You get people with analysis paralysis, have to read all the cards. So to me, 2 to 3 players was optimum. 4, like I say, gets to be a little long, and that's the case. You're waiting a little longer than you want for your turn to come around in this game. Not bad, but it happens. Now, my other criticism of this game is this. This is a 4-player game. This is a 4-player game, meaning there are 2 or 3 player variants, but to really experience this game as it was intended, to optimize this game, you need 4 players. Now, it's not hard, at least not for me, to get 4 players together to play a game. It's not hard. But my point is this. I don't know that you'd want to get this game if you're not going to be playing with 4 players. If you're just getting this as a 2-player game, get the original base game or get the Rivals game if you want the confrontation system. I don't know that you need this one. This game works for 4 players. This is a 4-player game, and really only a 4-player game. Yeah, you got the variants, but it's a 4-player game. That's the way it was designed. And it works great as a 4-player game. I mean, of course, like I say, you're waiting a little bit for it to come to ready, but I mean, just the game itself is very, very fun as a 4-player game. But just know that going into it. It's a 4-player game.
Okay, all right.
Don't do it, Cody.
So I'm going to play block. You can do this. You can discard this to add 2 to your character. So
turn from your evil ways, Cody.
I'm at a 14. Then I'm going to discard this one, which lets me add up the costs of these cards to add. So that puts my guy well out of your range.
Sorry. Gosh. Sorry. With those caveats in place, having said all that, if you can get the 4 players, buy this game. It's fun. I really get a kick out of this game. I like I say, I've always loved DC Comics deck building game. This is kind of the DC Comics deck building game is kind of the game I use, I think, to teach people deck building, because it's a simple game, but it's fun and there's choices and I like it, yeah, there's a thematic issue, but I like it. And I really like Confrontations. It's to me, it's a great new way to play this game. They knocked this game out of the park. I cannot. This is a game where you finish playing it and you cannot wait to play it again. It's just that good, that much fun. So the recommendation for the discriminating gamer for the DC Comics deck building game Confrontations is unhesitantly buy it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We are The Discriminating Gamer. And ladies and gentlemen, if I'm honest, I'd have to say the analogy would be we are the Aunt B of board game review shows. Because we're loving, nurturing, and kind. And a bit of a diva.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Y'all realize how every time we do this, we destroy the city.